everyone, I'm going to be reading chapter 20 of Gangsta Granny. Chapter 20. Boom, boom, boom. Ben couldn't believe what Granny had just said. There was no way he was risking stealing the crown jewels only to put them back the very next night. But they're worth millions, billions even, he complained. I know, so we definitely get caught if we tried to sell them, replied Granny. But no buts, boy, no. We put them back the next night. Do you know how I evaded prison all these years? I never sold a thing. I just did it for the buzz. But you kept them though, said Ben. Even though you didn't sell them, you've got all those jewels in your biscuit tin. Granny blinked. Well, yes, I was young and foolish then, she said. I've learned since that it is wrong to steal. And you need to understand that too. She gave him a fierce look. Ben squirmed. I do. Of course I do. It's a brilliant plan you've put together, Ben. Honestly it is. But those crown jewels don't belong to us, do they? No, said Ben. They don't. He felt a tiny bit ashamed now that he'd been so horrified at the idea of giving back the jewels. And don't forget that every policeman in the country, maybe in the world, will be looking for the crown jewels. They'll have all of Scotland Yard after us. If we were fine with them, we'd be thrown into prison for the rest of our lives. That might not be so long for me, but it could be 70 or 80 years for you. You're right, said Ben. And the Queen seems like such a nice old dear. We were around the same age, actually. I would hate to upset her. Me too, mumbled Ben. He had seen the Queen on the news loads of times, and she seemed like a nice old lady, smiling, waving at everyone from the back of her giant pram. Let's just do it for the thrill. Agreed? Agreed, said Ben. When can we do it? It still have to be a Friday night when Mum and Dad take me to stay at yours. Did the doctor say when you'd be out of hospital? Oh, yes, he did. He said I could leave any time. Fantastic. But we need to do it very soon. How about next Friday? Isn't that too soon? Not at all. Your plan seems to be very well thought out, Ben. Thank you, said Ben, beaming. It was the first time ever that he felt like he'd made a grown-up proud of him. When I get out of here, I'll get on to pinching the equipment we need. Now run along, Ben. I will see you next Friday night at the usual time. Ben pulled back the curtain. Mr. Parker, Granny's nosy neighbour, was standing right there. Startled, Ben took a couple of steps back towards the bed and quickly shoved Plumbing Weekly up the back of his jumper. What are you doing here? Asked Ben. Hoping to see me take a bed bath, no doubt, said Granny. Ben chuckled. Mr. Parker scrambled for us. No, Matron! Matron! Hollered Granny. Wait, said Mr. Parker, panicking. I'm sure I heard one of you talk about the crown jewels. It was too late. The matron, who was an unusually tall lady with very big feet, clumped down the ward at speed. Yes, asked the matron. Is something the matter? This man was spying at me through the curtains, said Granny. Were you? Demanded the matron, eyeballing Mr. Parker. Well, I heard that they were, whined Mr. Parker. Last week he spied on Granny doing her naked yoga, offered Ben. The matron's face turned prusse with horror. Get out of my ward at once, you filthy little swine, she screamed. Humiliated, Mr. Parker backed away from the terrifying matron and scuttled out of the ward. He paused at the swing doors and yelled back to Granny and Ben, You haven't seen the last of me, before rushing out. Please let me know if that man comes back, said Matron, her face returning to a more normal shade. I will, replied Granny, before Matron returned to her duties. He could have heard everything, hissed Ben. Maybe, replied Granny, but I think Matron scared him off for good. I hope so. Ben was very worried about the unfortunate development. Do you still want to go through with it? Asked the old lady. Ben had that feeling that you have when you're on a roller coaster, and it's slowly making its way up the track. You want to get off and you want to stay on. Dread and delight all rolled into one. Yes, he said. Hurrah, said Granny, giving Ben a big smile. Ben turned to leave and turned around. I love you, Granny, he said. And I love you too, little Benny, said Granny with a wink. Ben winced. He'd a Gangsta Granny now, and that was great. But he was going to have to teach her to just call him Ben. Ben ran along the corridors with his heart beating incredibly fast. Boom, 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 boom. He was electrified with excitement. This 11-year-old boy who'd never done anything notable in his life except once being sick on his friend's head in the middle of a big wheel at the local fun fair was going to take part in the most daring robbery the world has ever known. He ran outside the hospital and began fumbling with his keys to unlock his bike from the railings. Then, looking up, he saw something unbelievable. It was his granny. That in itself was not unusual, but this was. Granny was abseiling down the side of the hospital. She tied a number of bedsheets together and was lowering herself down the side of the building. Ben couldn't believe his eyes. He knew his granny was a proper gangster, but this was off the scale. "Granny, what on earth are you doing?" shouted Ben across the park. "The lift wasn't working, dear. See you next Friday. Don't be late," she shouted. As she reached the ground, she leaped on her mobility scooter and roared off. Well, whirled off home. There's a picture of Granny in her nightie with the bed sheets abseiling down. Never had a week pass so slowly. Ben spent all week waiting for Friday to come. Every minute, every hour, every day seemed like an eternity. It was strange having to pretend he was just another ordinary boy when he was really just one of the greatest criminal masterminds of all time. Finally, Friday evening came. There was a knock at Ben's door. Rat-a-tat-tat. "Well, are you ready, son?" said Dad. "Yeah," said Ben, trying to act as innocent as possible, which actually is quite hard when you're feeling extremely guilty. "You don't need to pick me up too early in the morning tomorrow. Granny and I would normally play Scrabble till it's quite late." "You won't be playing Scrabble, son," said Dad. "No." "No, son, you won't be going to Granny's tonight at all." "Oh, no," said Ben. "Is she back in hospital?" "No, she's out." Ben sighed with relief and then felt a prickle of anxiety. "So why am I not going to her house?" The plan was in place. There was no time to lose. "Because," said Dad, "tonight is the under-12s dancing competition. At last it's your big moment to shine." That's the end of the chapter, everyone. Thanks for listening. Bye.